Yeah.
Never roll your R's. Never.
You know what? I didn't grow up rolling R's. I don't know. I know there's kids who can do that like effortlessly, and I'm like 52, and I'm like, how do you do that? I don't know. So
Regionalisms are wonderful. They should be
yeah.
maintained at all costs.
Do I hear a dog?
Hey,
Oh,
Stuart.
dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'll go and I'm gonna have to deal with him. I'll be
I
back.
want to see the dog. That's our policy. Dog barks while your microphone is unmuted. You must present the dog so that we can all enjoy the dog.
Come on.
Welcome, everyone. While Lynn's getting her puppy, it's good to see you all. Here comes. Oh, I heard something.
You outside, Linda? Missy?
Say hello. This is
Hi,
Bertie.
Hey, good to
Hello,
see
sweetheart.
you. That's the other one, right? We saw the other one Friday,
That's
I think. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Lynn. All right, we're all on policy now. Ingrid, you had a question or comment.
I just asked Missy if that was her house.
That's my dream home, which we went to see the other day.
Nice, beautiful.
Fantastic.
it
Right
is.
down the street from Roosevelt's.
Dreams become reality.
That's
Yeah.
right. I claimed it.
There you go. All right, we're live. Welcome, everyone, to our Success Mastermind for Monday, June 6th, the anniversary of D-Day, which Missy just reminded me. Missy, you are a history buff. Like, wow. You know stuff. You really do. You know stuff.
Important date.
There you go. Speaking of history, I'm intending a trip north in July to visit my father up there on the beaches of Delaware, of all places. But we plan on actually flying into Virginia Beach area and going to visit where my daughter's never been, Williamsburg, Jamestown, that whole, where people are like dressed to the part,
We spent
right?
our honeymoon in Williamsburg.
Yeah, I said you were a history buff. I had no idea, right? These people honeymoon in Williamsburg. No, not Hawaii, not pick your Byron Bay or something. No, Williamsburg, Virginia. So we're gonna go, meet the colonial cast of characters. As I recall, there is a church. I don't know, 7, 8 years old when I was there. There's a church, and on one of the pews is the blood of George Washington, as I recall. So, wow. And if it's not, you could just assume it's the blood of George Washington and be like, oh my goodness, George, So either way, you get the same mental juices out of it, whether that's accurate or not. Tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern, we are digging into the foreword, the preface, the introduction, the acknowledgments, and the first 2 chapters of You Were Born Rich by my buddy and your buddy, Bob. I know Books for Britain, they've been on that for some weeks. They're probably wrapping it up here pretty soon, maybe even this week. Excuse me, but we're just getting into it. So there is a free download for all of our members. If you go into your member site, you click on the menu, or if you click down into resources, the books section, there's clickable links in there, and you can find a link directly to download a free copy on PDF, as well as the audiobook, which was recorded horribly. It sounds terrible, but it's still kind of audible, and you could listen to it if you like. But we're going to read the written word because this way we can go ahead and focus and not multitask, and grab a dictionary if needed, and really dig into what was the author talking about when he was telling us that we were born rich. What does he really mean by that? So we're going to get down to every little word. That's how we study around here. Anyway, good to see our new members. Welcome to you guys. Good to see Catherine. And of course, Missy's here, Daisy, Destiny, Edward, Ingrid, Janet, Lindsay, Lynn, and Stuart. Today, I want to talk with you a little bit about the necessity of self-validation. So I get to talk with lots of people every day. And I get to listen to lots of people. So talk with doesn't mean talk at, dialogue, actual dialogue. And I've noticed for people who are, let's say, newer than me, because I still consider myself a student, okay? But people who are newer than me at this whole idea of excuse me, of flexing our entrepreneurial muscles, of doing something very self-determined, of coming out of our perhaps slumber or cocoon or indoctrination into perhaps corporatism, perhaps I don't know, just a life of no goals, right? Where we've just kind of like drifted along in a sort of a stasis, or, hey, we're surviving, so it's not so bad, right? But actually saying, you know what, I'm here to advance in life, says me, now, right? And so that initial entry into being, doing, and having more deliberately. We all know, if we've read any of the books that we study around here, we all know that life is always moving lifeward, or it's succumbing and declining to death, right? The tree grows, and then at that end of that cycle, it declines and decays and becomes the dirt for the next tree. Okay, so there's a whole cycle of this, and throughout life we can observe people, and certainly we can observe ourselves. And I don't want you to introvert on this and get all navel gazing and stuff, but we can look at times in our lives where we've been enthusiastic, moving forward, advancing, growing, expanding. And we could also see things where perhaps you can recognize times when you've felt like, what's the use, apathetic, or on the decline, and we could say moving deathward. Okay, so I don't mean to be too heavy with you about this, but I just want to give you some contrast, all right, because there's clarity through contrast. So if we are newer to the idea of, snapping out of whatever, comfort zone, or, stasis, or good being the enemy of great, or whatever, right? Not necessarily a deathward, spiral, but still nothing rests. We're either moving lifeward or deathward. So if we've been, kind of stopped in that, now we're saying we're going to get unstopped, then there is a necessity for us to show up as the person of advancement, the person who's moving lifeward, the man or woman who is not only willing to accept more control and responsibility, because the two go together, not only willing to learn stuff, but enthusiastic about doing it. In other words, if it's been humdrum up to this point, then if that same person shows up in a position of advancement, no matter how good an opportunity might be, they're still going to experience it as sort of a humdrum. In other words, life isn't as it is, but as we are. We've all probably heard that cliche before. But we do have each of us filters through which we're experiencing whatever circumstances, life, stuff, right? Planet Earth, whatever, right? You're filtering that in. You're disregarding much of it, right? For your own sanity, right? We can get into things like reticular activating systems and, cognitive, whatever. But I mean, if you were actually consciously accepting every input right now into your life, you'd go mad. I mean, there's only so much data that you could process at a time, right? So like right now, I've got, this office, right? I'm disregarding most of it. It's stable. I don't need to have my attention on it. The bookcase isn't flying around like a Wizard of Oz. Everything's cool. Now, if a plane landed on my house while we were having this conversation, well, you know what? I could have been a bit more observant. I don't know what I would have done about it, but you get the point. Probably we are comfortable enough that we can disregard a lot of our surroundings when we're in, let's say, this workspace, this thinking space. I'm not saying walk down the street staring at your iPhone or something. All right, that's stupid. All right. In fact, Stuart and I did a little bit. If you go into our archive in the Adventures in Mindset show, right, which ran for like a year, we did a couple of episodes together. We co-hosted on preparedness, and as I recall, Stuart, one of the things that we took up was the color code of awareness. Did we take that up? Right, code white, like you're clueless, right? You're easy victim, easy target. Code white, code yellow, right? Aware, not paranoid. Aware, awake, right? Observant. Code orange. And this is a tangent, okay? But for those who don't know, code orange would be observing a potential threat, attention here, concern, or let's say prepared, right, to react or respond. Code red is imminent fight, like you're about to be attacked. Okay, and then code black is the fight itself. And this is something that was brought up by Colonel Jeff. Oh my goodness, how am I forgetting the guy's name? He wrote the book on self-defense mindset. Colonel Jeff. Oh, I can't believe I just did that. I forgot the guy's name. I'll pull up my Kindle while I keep talking. But when you have this, just like if you were in that example, right? If you were code white all the time, and then you showed up into Colonel Jeff Cooper, The Principles of Personal Defense. Great book, by the way. Easy book to read, but really gets you into like the mindset of the warrior. If you intend to, be the first responder, which you are, in case somebody attacked you or your family, but if you showed up as less than the opportunity that you're looking to engage in, then you will continue to demonstrate, as good as the opportunity might be, continue to demonstrate, let's say, those unsatisfactory or mediocre results that got you to the point where you're looking for an opportunity, where you're looking to advance in life. Ralph Emerson said, "Of what use to make heroic vows of amendment if the same old lawbreaker is to keep them?" With that in mind, this idea of self-validation came up for me. Let's say that at this point, you're newer to the path of deliberate, advancement and creating the results that you're looking to create in your life. And you say, damn it, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to do something. If you're looking for validation outside of yourself for, here's your lapel pin, here's some recognition or award, just because you're stating an intention, then not only do you look amiss, but you will be disappointed, because just like the crabs in the bucket, which you guys know I went crabbing on Friday, we caught nothing. Okay. So first time crabbing in, I don't know, 30, 40 years. And in a location I've never done it before. But, you throw like a chicken wing in the water, you get the net and the crabs come and they grab the chicken wing and you pull it up slowly and you grab the crabs, right? And you throw them in the bucket. Anyway, we got exactly zero. But but let's say we got one. If we did get one, we would have to cover that bucket. We would have to ensure it does not escape. But once we got two, and this I remember from my experience as a child growing up on the shores of New Jersey, once you got two, the other will pull the one trying to climb out. Hey, let me grab your leg, right? Pull them back in. Neither of them are getting out. None of them are getting out once there's two. Okay. So, I would probably still cover it just because they hurt really bad when they get you with the claws. I remember seeing blood on the deck. But the idea here is that it's the tendency for others to, without thinking, okay, thinking is a big assumption, all right? So we're not going to assume thinking, okay? But we're just going to say, here's others and their paradigm, which we're going to be getting into in this book. We're going to get into paradigms. That's one of the concepts that Bob talked about a lot. And the paradigm is, of course, our collection of filters and habits and how we perceive the world, okay? But our paradigm and the paradigm of others, while that may have been in some sort of a comfort or stasis or whatever before, now that you stood up, now that you said, I'm climbing out of the bucket, don't expect validation. I remember when I was looking to turn my life around. And as a lot of you know, I got my start in like the whole personal development, studying of philosophy and life skills and whatever through 12-step fellowships. So here's Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and groups like this where you've got people who are engaging in new action. Okay, so that new action specifically and foremost would be, stop killing yourself with mind altering chemicals, stop drinking yourself to death. Right. So that would be a new action. And I remember one of the things that I remember hearing in those conversations was, don't expect people to suddenly give you like extra credit or something just because you're finally doing what you should have been doing all along. Right. So look at me, I'm transformed, man. I'm freaking awesome. No, you're just not completely horrible anymore. Right. So in that way, if you can imagine, right? So here's the, the drunkard or the ne'er-do-well who, wants to turn over a new leaf. They're going to have to find some way to validate themselves. In other words, to not need credit. In fact, there was a book, I'm sure Stuart or some of you know which book I'm talking about. It was Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements. And I'm going to paraphrase, but one of the agreements was to not need validation or to not need, seeking agreement from others and that sort of thing, to be independent and self-validating in some way. I remember one of the other agreements, which resonated with me very much, was to be impeccable with your word. That makes a lot of sense to me. We'll have to review that book sometime. You know what? Let's put it on the list. That's a good book to read, I think. Okay. So here's the idea. You just showed up, you're climbing out of the bucket. You've got more intelligence than a crab, and you've got more intention than the others in the bucket. Let's say you got more intention. And you also have a feeling of discomfort because you're out of your element. It's a new paradigm, or it doesn't match up with the habitual paradigm. And so we have the opportunity then to be self-critical. So I'm talking about the necessity for being self-validating. Okay. So that, I think, takes a bit more intention and effort than the effortless, I think, being self-critical. Am I the only one who's been self-critical here? Right. So with that in mind, what is the antidote? Okay, how can we recognize if we've been self-critical, and what can we do about it? And these are the things that I'd like to leave you with, and of course have you any ideas on this. First one, this is right out of my first book, Integrity is Everything, is we could make a list of things we did right. So we're all familiar with a gratitude list, right? We've all been admonished 10 billion times to write down what you're grateful for and stop being so miserable and stop taking things for granted and recognize all that you have and all you can be and do. Okay, well, how about a list of what we can call an integrity list? So here's all the things that I told myself I would do, and I did. And just like with a gratitude list, where you might start with something, very small, seemingly small, right? Well, I can see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, right? I've got my five senses. I've got my desk, right? I'm in good health. I've got food in the refrigerator, right? You could start with easily observable things, and then you can keep brain dumping on that and get into, wow, I've got friends who love me, and I've got my relative, and you start thinking of awesome people in your life. I've got Missy, and so grateful that Missy and I get to talk. Right? I've got awesome people in my life. And you can get into, just like Abraham Maslow talked about his hierarchy of needs, right? Your gratitude list can also kind of go up that gradient from, basic, wow, I can move my hands. That's cool. Right. To, I've got purpose in life, and, I'm making a difference in the lives of so-and-so. Right. That's awesome. All right. Same thing with the integrity list. All right. So if you're sitting there being self-critical, what are some of the very low, trailhead, very bottom of the mountain stuff that you can put your attention on? Well, I got up today at the time that I said I would, or thereabouts, right? I did. You know what? I did my exercise, right? And look, if you haven't, well, then you can hit the deck right now and go, do 20 push-ups or something, right? I remember Lindsay's on here. I remember one time Lindsay and I were talking in one of our sessions, and she was just kind of dragging. She was not appearing energetic, at least not to me. I was like, hey, do some jumping jacks, girl. And I mean, right there on the spot, 10 jumping jacks while we were in session. So great. Now you can put that on your list. Look at all this integrity that you're demonstrating. That's spectacular, right? So we could start with these little things, and then we can get into, again, up that hierarchy. What are some of these other things that you might consider more profound? Well, you know what? How many people who say they're going to start a business, who say they're going to climb out of the bucket, who say they're going to, right? How many people actually do? I'm not even talking about completing the task. I'm just talking about starting. Well, you started. Well, that's spectacular, right? We'll put that down. You started the operation. Fantastic, right? Which reveals what? That you're able to make decisions, right? Because you don't start anything you haven't decided to start. The decision precedes the action, right? So you're a decisive person. Look at that. So you just took ownership of what I think is very virtuous and validating, right? I just give you one example, is the fact that you're a decision maker. We're going to talk about that in this book too. A decision maker. Wow. Okay. Now, what percentage of people, when looking at their daily, and I don't know the actual percentage, but looking at their daily life, how much of it is running on autopilot, and how many of them have the courage to make a new decision deliberately, intentionally, and to depart? Yes, to depart the herd, let's say. It's scary for a lot of people. Even people who do it, right? I mean, we're social creatures, and we tend to like to get agreement and validation and all this. Well, if you're advancing in life, you're going to leave the cow pasture, so to speak. There was this book by Scott Alexander back in 1980 called Rhinoceros Success, where he talked about there's like all these different animal types, and he used it as sort of an analogy for people and personality types. And he said there's a lot of cows on the cow pasture, just going through their life, chewing the cud, basically waiting for the slaughter. And then you've got the rhino, who's like just totally out of place, dissatisfied with the pasture, wants to charge, has a big horn sticking out of its head, wants to go through the jungle. Of course, the cows, they all say, well, there's arrows and hunters in there, and there's thorns, and we have thin skin, right? So you should probably just stay here, with us cows. But the rhino's got to charge, right? And so against the good opinion of the cows, they leave the pasture and venture into the jungle. Of course, on the other side of the jungle is the promised land, all right? But to make that deliberate decision, to put yourself in a state of, I could say peril, or I could say discomfort. Is it comfortable to start something new? Is it comfortable to charge through jungles and to leave the security of the cow pasture, which could be a job? It could be just chronic victimhood. I mean, that's a vice. You guys understand that being a victim and just blaming others and all that is a vice. I heard one guy say poverty is a vice. Yeah, it's actually a crutch that people can use and quite often do to explain away their own unwillingness, irresponsibility. Right. It's a heavy trip for a lot of people, right? You want to cause an argument, just tell them that they're responsible for their results, right? I've argued about it plenty. So back to the point is that if you recognize that there are virtues that you possess and that you actually demonstrate, like decisiveness, you started something. How about what we talked about last week, persistence, right? You're persistent. Okay, good. Is that valid? Great. Then put that down, right? Because anything that we're going to succeed at is that which we're going to complete. So now we're taking it a step further. It's one thing to decide, and to start. And it's another thing to persist to the point of completion. I mean, that's anything you've ever been successful at ever, as you've taken it to a state of completion. That's done. That's successful. That's finished. Or is that you? Right. So you see, we're finding these things which we can validate about ourselves, and we're enumerating them. And if it's helpful for you to go ahead and write them down, so you can look at them objectively and say, look, there it is. There's the truth. It's written. It's on paper. There it is. And now we've got reminders. Now we've got things that we can look at in those dark times where we've got the self-criticism, the doubt, the considerations, the story from our past, and the reminders of our past failings, whether we like it or not, from ourselves or from our ignorant but well-meaning friends, family, neighbors. We can go ahead and we can balance that. Because look, to go from like 180 degrees across, right? To do that, it sounds like a big shift, right? Just think about it in terms of actual geometry. 180 degrees is an exact about face. Well, we do that also on a gradient, okay? If you think of like balancing scales, like apothecary scales, right? You put the product on one side and you put the rocks on the other and it balances. Okay, good. So if we've been negative for years, decades, whatever, right? And now we start putting a few pebbles on the positive side. Do we have license to be, disappointed or self-deprecating because we didn't just see the the scales slam the other way? No. Let's just go ahead and recognize that as a persistent person, we're going to go ahead and we're going to continue to put, ideas into our mind. We're going to continue to show up in conversations and surround ourselves in an environment where the success we seek is a reality. Yes, to accelerate that evolution deliberately, but also with our intellect, we can understand that, because I put a few pebbles here doesn't mean that it's just going to slam the other way. Let's keep validating ourselves to the point where that balances. And then when we start getting a little bit heavier on the positive side, 51%, we see the results. We see the results outwardly. Okay. It may be delayed gratification, but if you're intelligent, you can understand, there's a season for sowing and a season for reaping. You don't do both in the same season. Well, now's the season for sowing. So let's sow and sow and sow and sow. And now 51, 52, 55, 60, right? Now, if you can get 100% positive on the positive side of the scale and have the negative side of the scale totally bereft of anything, fish and loaves, levitation, I don't know. I haven't achieved that. Okay. But that would be kind of like instantaneous, name it and claim it. Magic, baby. I'm still working on it. Okay. However, that doesn't mean that you don't validate yourself and that you don't strive for the highest of heights that you can visualize, that you can imagine for yourself. So I'll leave you with one more idea on self-validation, and that is to accept that you're playing a bigger game. So just like the departure from the bucket or, the corporate world or whatever, transitioning you're intending, that's a bigger game. Yes, you get more control and freedom with that. Yes, you also have to accept more responsibility for that. And yes, you also have to know more stuff to do that. So you damn well better educate yourself, right? Well, if you're engaging in all that, well, then you automatically can recognize and validate the fact that you are playing a bigger game. Therefore, you're a bigger person. It's be, do, and have in that order. You've become someone who's willing to have bigger results and therefore play a bigger game. That's who you are now. Well, that's pretty validating. Great. Well, what does that person do? Okay, you go ahead and you do new tasks, right? Or you do them in a way that is with a greater sense of purpose and faith that you're going in the right direction. And then having is automatic, right? It's not like you need to go get. It's being delivered right on schedule. You're just arranging the receiving pipelines, but you're doing so as the person. Yes, be, do, and have. You're doing so as the person who already is the owner of that bigger game, that bigger vision. Terribly validating, I think. Now, again, the flip side is we got to take the weight off the negative side of the scale, right? So stop looking at all the reasons why you can't. There's two questions we can ask ourselves. For the self-critical person, the typical question is, why can't I? Or here's why I can't. Those are the considerations. For the self-validating person, how can I? What can I do? What part of this can I be responsible for? So you see the difference? There's whys in terms of why I can't, and there's how-tos, like how I can, how I will. Two very different conversations on two opposite sides of the scale. What do you guys think about this? I had no idea what I was going to talk about until that just came. That just happened. So yeah, you guys got any thoughts on this? Like being a self-validating person? Destiny, you're going to find out that that I never know what's going to come out of my mouth until I hear it. All right, Destiny, you've got the floor. Come on down.
All right. Well, you could see a few moments where it just came to you. And sometimes I think those messages is what we need to hear. So even if you don't know what you're going to say, it was much needed information for me to hear, for one.
Thank you.
And I really like your crab analogy.
Oh.
So true. When you're trying to climb out of that bucket, and if you're letting your own self-doubt drag you down, the next crab is going to pull you down, and it's going to be easy for them to do that. So I'm not sure why I unmuted myself, but I really do appreciate the analogy, and I think it helps me connect the dots,
Right.
for lack of a
Good.
better word.
Well, glad you're here, Destiny. Yeah, I'm glad this resonated with you. And I think we could apply it into we could apply it into any endeavor, methods, whatever, right? What do you think, Missy? And then we'll go to Lynn. Hey, Missy.
Well, I'm so grateful that I'm starting to leave that self-critical person, or whatever phrase you used, becoming self-validating, because I spent so many years doing that. And I have a real life example of, earlier you mentioned a person who, he's in a different world. So when I grew up in Long Island City, I was little, 5, 6, 7. I had a nemesis, Patty Butler, and she lived 2 doors down, and she would lie in wait for me. And I'd come out my stoop. I would look everywhere. I never saw her. She was like a ninja. She would come out and she beat me up. She didn't like pummel me and damage me. She threw me on the ground. I got up. She just did it like 3 times and left me alone. And 30 years later, 35, we became dear friends. And I found out that her dad was captured by the Japanese in the first year of the war. And he was in a Japanese concentration camp for 4 years. He survived. He came home, but I don't think he was home. Now, he was a nice, lovable, respectable, take care of everybody in the neighborhood type of guy. But inside those doors, he wasn't violent or anything, but I think there was a lot of Irish drinking going on to numb those days. I guess he couldn't get out. He probably had some kind of PTSD that they didn't know about in those days, or they didn't call it that. I mean, obviously something was affecting her. And so she was acting out to me. And when I was able to put that together, it was like such a light bulb moment. She just had to get out her frustration. Like I said, she didn't hurt me. She was 3 years older than me, and she could just take care of me, And when you realize that people who are doing these things don't even realize what they're doing. So, and it was just the vibe of whatever he was bringing into that. He brought the concentration camp with him, I presume, making a lot of presumptions. But this colored their lives, and she became one of the greatest people I've ever known, the most generous, take care of everybody. Went into a home where there was just a fire to find the animals. The people had incredible person, but it just really resonated with me very much. And if you better validate yourself, and if you're waiting for the outside world to validate you, then you're still in the outside world, and you got to go in, because that's where everything happens. That's what Patty did. I hope that's what her father did before he passed from this realm. And that is when I'm persisting in making myself, that is my intention. And sometimes I fall, but at least it's my intention. And a lot of it is from coming here and being with all these wonderful people, and that you facilitating this for us. So thank you again.
Thank you, Missy. Yeah. you've become one of my favorite people on the planet. That's it. And we didn't even know each other about a year ago, Missy, about a year ago. Yeah. So what a transformation. This is awesome. Hey, Lynn, middle of the night, Lynn, welcome to the, yes, you've got the floor, my friend.
Okay, well, the scales analogy was an interesting one for me. And it just sort of, to me, it demonstrated how, okay, yes, I can make change. I can make it slowly. And it doesn't matter about, things start to move. I don't need to worry about the rest of the world. Really don't. And it sort of struck me too that it's like, in fact, in my own life, I have taken responsibility for basically changing my shape, like literally. I'm literally half the woman I used to be.
Wow.
And I didn't tell people I was going to diet, and I didn't expect anybody to notice, and they didn't, because the uniform we wear at work is quite unflattering. And so it really wasn't until I was like right down that people were going, you lost weight. And it's like, well, by that stage, I was way lost weight. And if I'd been waiting for other people to kind of go, are you losing weight? I'd have given up long before I got there. And the sense of actually being in control of literally myself was incredibly powerful. And I can actually apply that to my business too.
Right. Wow. So you lost 50% of your body weight. You relieved yourself of. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't need it.
Right. That's pretty dramatic. So like two of you. Okay. So that's, yeah. And you didn't seek external validation while doing that. You had decided and you persisted in that. And before you could even tell people, there it is. Right.
Yeah. It took best part of a year.
Right. Okay.
But that's not surprising.
Now, I have a question for you on that, though, because there's another side of this, and that is having allies, right? So I'm saying necessity for being self-validating. At the same time, we do have allies and people that helped us, do this. I think we're all allies here, right? So did you have allies that in that particular pursuit, or no?
No. I didn't tell anyone at work, and my life's a bit isolated since my husband died, and I don't catch up with my friends very much now. So basically, no, I didn't.
Wow. What was it that drove you? Was there, and I'm sorry to park on this so much, but
I just got fed up.
Okay.
I had it.
Just say no, like enough is enough with this.
Yeah.
This, okay.
That's it. I'm going to go and get a book, and I'm going to deal with this.
So here's the thing, everybody. This transformation happened like that internally. Lynn became the person of, fitness and what have you, right? She instantly started doing the things. Yes, she educated herself. I'll get the books, get the text, whatever. Okay. So I can do these things because I no longer identify as this overweight, obese, whatever, right? So I became the new person. I did the things and then I had the result. It worked regardless of the methods. It worked.
Yeah.
Right. So the transformation physically may have taken a year, but the real transformation was instantaneous. She just got fed up.
Yeah. That was the point. That was the point. The point of power,
right, was
when I made the decision in my head, and I could feel it. It was like going, I have now got the whip end of the handle of a whip. I've got it. It was lovely. I can remember the feeling.
Wow, the feeling. Yeah. So it wasn't like here you are trying to convince yourself or something. It was for real transformation.
Yep. Yeah.
Bam. There it is, guys. There it is. That's terribly validating. It's like, I'm not even this person anymore. Wow.
Thank you for.
Right.
I just I'd forgotten about that actually. It's just not tonight. Oh yeah, I know. I can do this. I've done it before.
Right. You did it.
Hmm.
Now, we're talking about self-validation, right? Did Lynn just remember something which she may have discounted or taken for granted because it was some time ago? I mean, what have you done for me lately, Lynn? So no, let's keep that on the integrity list here. That's good stuff. I like that. Wow. Thank you again, Lynn, and your dogs.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Stuart, what's up?
Good day. Happy Monday, everybody. Good to see you all. John, you're on fire today, buddy.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Super inspiring. Thanks for plugging Adventures in Mindset and what a great time that was. And those sessions that we did together were super awesome. Yeah, the color code of awareness, you just reminded me, I'm here in New Mexico, and in my backyard are burning the largest wildfires in the country right now. And thousands of people in my immediate area have been evacuated. Hundreds of people have lost their homes, and they've instituted a color code system for ready, set, go for evacuating. Right, we're not quite in the yellow yet, but and we're not quite in the white, so they have a gray. That's sort of like, be aware that you may start to have to pack up all your stuff and go kind of thing. So we're in the gray zone, but then they have the yellow, green, red of ready, set, go. And, everybody is talking here about, we just went green, or we're yellow now, or whatever it is. So very interesting that you brought that up. The crab analogy is really interesting to me, because like you mentioned, you get one crab in the bucket and they stay in the bucket. Two crabs in the bucket and one crab tries to climb out and the other crab tries to pull it back in. But if you get enough crabs in the bucket, there's always the one crab that will figure out how to climb over all the other crabs and get out of the bucket. Right. So let's take that a step further and say, you know what, if there's a few crabs in the bucket, you're all stuck in the bucket. But if there's enough crabs in the bucket, there's always somebody who's fed up enough with their situation that wants to rise above and create themselves anew and get the hell out of the bucket. Right. And to me, it's sort of similar to the sheeple analogy. Right. And there's a reason why the sheep analogy has been used for millennia in terms of describing human beings, right? And we're interesting creatures because not only are we the sheep, but we also tend to be the sheepdogs, meaning we don't like it when the other sheep try to get out of the pen, right? And so we, come back, or we're calling to, call the sheepdog to round the other sheep back up. And the analogy for me tends to be either the people that are threatened by people that are self-determined and want to forge their own path, and the nonconformists, right? And so people see that as a threat, or just as a reminder that they didn't necessarily get to achieve or realize their own dreams and their own aspirations. And so it's much easier to just kind of bash somebody else's and pull them back into the pen and just be happy with your lot and, just be a good sheep kind of thing. So thanks for that. I really appreciated that. You mentioned the Four Agreements, which to me, and I like the Don Miguel book, but really to me, it harkens much more to all the Castaneda books and the stories of Don Juan, right? And I remember reading those books in my teens and early 20s, and they changed my life. And honestly, the first general session that I did here with you was about impeccability, and I'll have to go back and look at that, or maybe some of you guys can go back and look at that. But the keys or the tenets of being an impeccable warrior, as per Don Juan in those Carlos Castaneda books, erasing personal history. We talked about, and you and I in particular, that maybe have come from traumatic pasts, and many people on this call, and maybe even people watching on YouTube, right? That we can identify with our trauma, or we can figure out a way to rise above and to not and to not be those things, to sort of, shit happens to everybody. It's how you deal with it, right? That's paraphrasing Epictetus. Losing our self-importance, right? And so, when we get offended about things, right? And that's what I think the one that you were referring to, and I think in the 4 agreements, it's don't take anything personally, but that concept of, how could somebody do that to me? Or how could somebody say that to me? Well, get over yourself and realize that it's not about you, and it's about that other person or whatever. So lose your self-importance. Don't be self-indulgent, right? And that self-indulgence is also this concept of, well, poor me, right? Why can't I? You mentioned that. Why can't I? Because you use the word can't. Why can't I? Because that's your mindset, right? That's your headspace of being in a negative place. The other thing that I thought was interesting about the concept of being impeccable is not letting the thoughts or judgments of others affect you, right? And as much as we talk about thoughts or things, and we talk about how our thoughts create our own reality, well, guess what? They also create other people's reality, right? And if you're on the receiving end of that, right, meaning you're allowing other people's judgments, impressions, what people think about you, right? Glenn always says, what do other people think? They don't, right? But that concept of being affected by what the box that other people want to put you in. Oh, you're just this, or oh, you're just that. For me, overcoming the naysayers, when I started my wilderness guide service, and how you gonna do this? You don't even, you have a kid, how you gonna start a business? How you gonna get llamas? You can't even take care of yourself, whatever it was back in my 20s, when I was going through all this. And yeah, if you let other people's negativity define you, then you're stuck like the crab in the bucket. I was reading You Were Born Rich last night, and one of the things Bob Proctor mentions, and of course this harkens to Napoleon Hill and James Allen and all these other prosperity books that we've been reading, to seek our own counsel. And of course, and you quoted Emerson, and immediately I go to self-reliance, right? And all these amazing concepts from Emerson in self-reliance. He talks about to believe our own thoughts is true genius. Whoever is going to become a whole healthy person has to be a nonconformist, right? So you can't just, go with the herd. That it's so easy for us to dismiss our own thoughts. This was one of my favorite quotes, that one day we will be forced to take our own opinion from someone else with shame, right? That, we don't believe our own self, but then we'll hear somebody else say the same thing and we'll be like, oh yeah, I thought of that, or oh yeah, right? But you don't own it, right? So we'll be forced to take our own opinion from somebody else with shame. He also says that we're ashamed of the divine idea that each of us represents. So yeah, man, self-validation. Don't listen to other people. Don't be put down by other people. Follow your own inner voice and be empowered by the divine spirit inside of each of us. Cheers, buddy. Looking forward
Cheers,
to
man. Good times. We'll see you tonight. Talk about some of the proctorisms from You Were Born Rich. Good stuff, everybody. Thank you for being here. Any other closing thoughts on this? I see some great participation in the chat. Catherine, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just thanks for this class today. I'm starting to see some of the results of this in my own life now, just where I've been putting forth effort. And, it never comes in quite the way you think it might. Seems like it's always a little bit different, but I don't want to jinx it by saying what it is yet. But if it happens, it'll be perfect. And it will free up a lot of my attention to other things that I can then commit full board.
Right.
So
Good stuff. So glad you're here, Catherine. Yeah. Transformation. Beautiful.
Yep.
All right, you guys. Well, let's go have an awesome day. I think Lynn's going to maybe get some sleep. I don't know if she sleeps, but in case she does, yes. Okay. We'll be back here in 8 hours for the first couple chapters of You Were Born Rich. Until then, you guys are awesome. Thanks for being here, and make it a great day. All right. Bye for now.